This is Monty with Monty's Black Politics. Today I will be speaking on the subject slavery, and my first topic is on the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War was from 1775 to 1783, and this was 13 British colonies fighting against the British for their independence, for the North American colonies to be free and separated from Britain. My first guest today is Mr. Hostin from Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. Hello, Mr. Hostin.
How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So my first question, did African Americans fight on the right side of the Revolutionary War?
Well, that's a tricky question because, a lot of folks in America would wonder, what is the right side? So you would have mixed opinions on a question of the sort because dealing with today's time, 2019 in America, people wonder what side is the right side. Is the right side the side that you stand up for the government? Or is the right side that what you believe in as a human being?
The 13 colonies in North America promised the slaves equality, and the British promised them freedom, where they could go to Britain or they could go to Canada.
You see, the Americans and the Great Britain promised us a dream, just like Black Americans was promised 40 acres of the mule, which was one of the biggest lies ever told. So, my opinion is they both lied to the Black Americans, and there was no right side. The only right side that you can stand up is for the truth within the creator of this universe. And the truth is the light. The truth is the way and the life.
But if we had to pick a side, what side would you say you would have picked back then?
I guess I would have been like what they called back in the day a swamp running Negro. Because I never believed that neither side had any truth to it. So I would be what they call a swamp running Negro. Running for my own freedom and my own way. Because their way was not my way.
So you bring up a good point. It was choosing between the two of less evils. Now, I believe that we should have fought with Britain. Why? It was an opportunity to get away from the worst slavery that we've seen in this world. So nowhere in the world was there slavery where we were never free. Our unborn were born into slavery, and so on. For the African Americans and what they called the North America at that time, at least when they got to Britain and they got to Canada, they had opportunities. So they were not slaves, but they were not treated equal. My belief is we fought on the wrong side. So my next question, is freedom free?
Freedom is what you believe in that frees your spirit from this ungodly system. Speaking on slavery, Great Britain has oppressed their people since the beginning of time. Who made them to be put in the position of royalty when my opinion is everybody that's born is royal. has a
Absolutely.
purpose, and is a king and a queen when they come on this earth. But because of stipulations by countries and governments, they want to lower your standards and have power over you. And so the systems have been oppressed by all unions and all nations and all countries, to keep you deprived of knowing who you really are as a human being. And so is freedom free? It's a cost to everything in life. It's a cost of trying to be free. It's a cost of being a slave. It's a cost to have chains around your mind. And so a person has to seek the truth within inside of themselves. They need to learn who they are, where they came from, what's their mission, what's their purpose on this earth. And then you'll find yourself to be free.
So when I think of is having freedom the same as being free, I think of America. So since July 4th, 1783, when they won the war, and America gained their independence from the British, I would say that although it is the land of the free, it's not the land of the free for people of color. So as an African American woman, I know that I do have freedom here, but I know that I pay a cost because of my complexion. So do I feel totally free? No. I don't feel like I have the same rights as a white woman. When I walk into a store, I'm watched the whole time. When a police is behind me, I have the thought, not that I'm doing anything wrong, committing any crime, or driving illegally, but I have a fear. Is this police officer going to stop me and harass me? And am I going to see another day? Do I believe that as African Americans, we have the freedom to express ourselves like our culture should in the motherland? No. I feel like we have to speak a certain way around white people. I feel like we have to dress a certain way, look a certain way. So although I have freedom, I do not feel completely free as a American. Well,
speaking on freedom, you have to ask yourself, what is freedom to you? Each individual looks at freedom in a different way. They may look at slavery in a different way. But to actually feel free as a human being, I think you have to have some concept of some God in your life. I think in this world that we live in today, we have lost a lot of the concept of a creator. And freedom just don't come about. It's a magnetism of earning your freedom, within your soul. And so most people are automatically, systematically programmed to worldly ways, but spiritually they're lost. And so you have to dig deep down inside of yourself to have that freedom, like when you was a child. When you was a child, you probably once felt free until you rolled up into the headaches of the world. And then you got all wrapped up in worldly things. And then you have to go back to your roots to find that spiritual aspects of who you are. What is your purpose here on earth? And to find that peace within yourself. And so it runs a little deeper than just asking yourself the question of, is freedom free? what type of freedom are we talking about here? Free from the jurisdictional system of the Caucasian in America, or the Caucasian, the Europeans in Great Britain? Whose rules, are we talking about here? Because if you go by those rules, then you'll never be free.
We got to go by God's rule.
Exactly.
I have with me Tony from Washington, D.C. Now, how are you today, Tony?
I'm great, Bonnie.
Did African Americans fight on the right side of the Revolutionary War?
That's a great question, Bonnie. So I would respond to it and say, I do believe they fought on the right side of the Revolutionary War, and this is why I say that. You have to think when our ancestors, the slaves were brought here from the various areas in which they were brought from. They were stolen from their homeland, if you would, and they came here and was forced to do things, that was wrong. But this is what I would say: they came here and they had families, so some of their children and kin were born here, in unfamiliar territory, which may have been unfamiliar to their parents, but they were born here and they grew up here. They didn't know. You would have to think that people didn't know who to trust. They didn't know whether they could trust. They knew what they were facing here, but they also didn't know for sure what they were facing in overseas there. So this came to be the home that they knew. So they understood that they were under oppression here, but I guess they would have thought that by helping, if they were doing the right thing by helping fight to defeat the British, that they would be looked upon as a valuable asset. You understand what I'm saying? And possibly that they would be looked at different and be allowed to be free. And that's how I would answer that question.
And although the North American colonies didn't keep their promise, the Britons didn't keep their promise either. But where we differ in opinions, I would rather be sent to another country that could be a segue to get me back to the motherland versus staying here, being a slave, my unborn being slaves, and my descendants being slaves. So although the African Americans that fought with the Britons were not totally free, they had an opportunity to go back home to the motherland. Which leads me into my next question.
Well, hold up, I gotta respond back to what you just said.
Okay.
Because I just think that, going back to what I was saying,
because if you think about it,
I look at this like
North American slaves didn't have any opportunities. They weren't given any choices. They were put into slavery, and their kids were put into slavery. Where the ones that fought on the side of the British, they were given choices. They could go to countries like Canada, England, Australia, and eventually they were even given the choice to go back home to Africa.
But you got to put yourself back in them times in those individuals' shoes. How did they know who to believe?
And some say, hey, they both lied.
But they knew what they were in was certain, and they probably figured, okay, if we help out, we will be viewed differently, and this slavery.
And that's what they were promised.
And slavery would end here.
They were promised their freedom.
So you were faced with a time back then when you were dealing with
a hard choice to make.
Yeah, it was a hard choice. They were dealing with Caucasians. They were lying to them.
On one side, and Caucasians lying to on another side.
Lying on the other side.
So that leads me to my next question. Is having freedom the same as being free?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because me as a black male, you know, I live in a society that's supposed to be a free society, but we're still fighting for equality, and we're still fighting for social justice and things like that. That even today, you know, me, no matter what you do or no matter what I do,
how much you accomplish,
I'm a black man.
Your complexion, your skin color.
You know, there are times when even now, being as high up as I am in my profession, that I still have to strive harder than my white counterparts. And I even look in terms of how things are viewed. You know, my actions and my ideas are more harshly challenged than my white counterparts, even though my ideas may be better. You know, and I see that. And what's even sad about that is you get that from your own people as well. You know, so I would say, the answer to your question, yeah, you're free, but some of our people are still not free in their mind, in their way of thinking.
So I would have to agree with you as an African American woman. Yes, I do know, living in America, I have freedom, but there are still some things that come up that make me feel like I'm not free. I'm not free enough to express myself like I would like to, when it comes to maybe having an encounter with an authority figure such as the police. Because why? I know my rights, but I also know that if I say the wrong thing, I will be killed. I will be shot. Where a Caucasian woman and man can express themselves in a correct way or in a rude way and walk away.
Yeah, and we've seen that with several examples, time and time and time again. And it goes far beyond just, you know, black and white. It goes against, it goes with nationality, sexual preference, and things of that nature as well. You have to really be mindful of what you say out of your mouth these days, because even though we live in a society that's supposed to be free, you know, we have free speech, there's a time and a place for quote-unquote free speech. Like in the workplace, if you say something out of the way, then you could be held duly accountable. You can't pull the free speech card, because there's rules that we all have to follow. So I would say, yeah, we're free, but we're not free from having to follow the rules that govern our everyday lives, even in our place of work.
When it comes to people of color. And another example of that is when President Lincoln freed the slaves. Yes, we received freedom, but were we really free to walk around, and were we really looked at as equal to white people? No, we weren't.
Well, it's not even about freedom. First of all, Lincoln freed the slaves as a war strategy.
Absolutely.
You know, that was a strategy, you know,
to win the war.
To win the war, right? And you still had people even at that time that did not know they were free. Even though they were free, their mind wasn't free at that time. They still had people who
you can be enslaved, and you can have freedom but be enslaved in your mind.
I just think that, you know, in today's society, I see us taking steps backwards in terms of, you know, the strides we have made in social justice and equality. And it seems like a lot of that has to do with the negative influences that are in front of us these days. Like our president, he doesn't always project the best image to bring peace and harmony amongst the American populace. You know, and I think what has happened, a lot of people that were hiding behind the closets and the keyboards and the computers.
Now that we have a white supremacist president,
they're coming out of the woodworks.
So that's going to be on our next.
They're coming out of the woodworks.
That's going to be on our next episode. So we're going to end this episode, but in my next episode, we're going to talk about who is America for And do you feel like you are a true American? Thank you, Tony. And I hope to see you back for the second episode.
Yes, ma'am.